Yeah, thank you, Dan. So welcome to the meetup. So first of all, thank you for coming. Some of you already grabbed the beer. So after the meetup, we have here some empanadas, some beer, some drinks also in the fridge. So that would be a good time for everyone. Then second, welcome to Dynatrace. We are here in the nice office with the nice views here in the new 14th floor in the Dynatrace building. So for those that doesn't know who we are more than 5,000 employees worldwide, and we are across more than 60 locations. And we right now have more than also 4,000 customers. And Barcelona office was born in 2017 after an acquisition of a small startup. Some of them were here. So yeah, it's been a long time. We're here based in Torre Glorias. Right now we have 3 floors already. As I said, this is a new floor that doesn't have even a year. So here in Barcelona, we are more than 300 people, joining more than 40 nationalities. And we go for first culture, people first culture. So here we also offer some cool things, as you can see, some wellness days, volunteering, and yeah, many parties. So feel free to check. What we do in Dynatrace. So Dynatrace is a observability platform. So basically, we analyze and automate different things. We have many different technologies we can optimize. We also have different platforms, and one of the projects that we are doing here in the Barcelona office is session replay. Okay, what is session replay for? In this case, for mobile. Mobile session replay is a recording of a user session that can play all the user interactions that a user does in the mobile. Then with GDPR support, so we anonymize all the data in order for the user to be in the safe side. And right now we have support for native iOS and Android applications. And soon in the future, we also will have coverage for React Native and Flutter. And yeah, here you can see what we do is basically we record all the important user interactions, and you can see that we try to anonymize everything that can be sensitive for the user. And last but not least, cool thing here is that we are hiring. So feel free to check our career in the website. And yeah, now it's turn for Dan to where are you? Here to do your presentation. Sorry. Do you want to share?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Daniel is first also.
Okay, stage is yours.
Thank you. Let's see. Does it work? Yes. Okay, now some boring parts. Also, my company CareerOS is also hiring. So if you've been to the office, I've hosted there some meetups. So just reach out to me after the event and we'll talk. I'll put you in contact with who needs to be. If you don't know, please join our Discord. I announced the meetup first on Discord and on LinkedIn before I put it on Meetup. So what you saw, sometimes it's full and you're on the wait list. Thankfully, Dynatrace has a huge spot, but usually it's like 70, 80 people. So if you want to get a heads up, just join our Discord server. Follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram. It's important to keep the meetup alive, and you can help us by that, by following us and spreading the word of our meetup. A cool thing, if you know, in Barcelona, every year there's the mobile, what's it called? The big conference. Right. So last year they did a thing called Talent Arena, which was free. This year they're also giving out tickets, like pro tickets that cost like $200. Because we're part of the community, ReactJS Barcelona, they're giving away 150 free tickets for us. They have some cool speakers and yeah, workshops and whatever. It's at La Fira. It's going to be in March, I think between 6 and 7 of March. So if you want one of these 150 free tickets, scan them. I'll also send an email, but first come, first serve, so get as much as you want. You can also share with your friends, of course. So if you want to go with someone, just send them the link. This is the code TA26 ReactJS. I will. Cool, everyone scanned? Cool. Then thank you for Josh, who's here from DevWorld. He is organizing JS World Amsterdam on the 7th and 8th of May, and he has one free ticket for anyone. I'm gonna have a raffle. So if you want to join the raffle, scan this code, enter your name, your email, and your LinkedIn, and I will announce the winner later tonight. The conference is pretty cool. I've actually spoken there like last year, I think. It's really amazing. The venue is huge. They have this amazing screen that like spreads out and people can walk through it. It's really, really cool. So Evan Yu speaks there every year. So yeah, I know this is a React meetup, but I don't know. Cool. And I also have some discounts for other conferences this year, like CityJS in London, JS World, $50 off, React Paris, Zurich JS, and CityJS Singapore. So if you want to go to a conference this year, if your company has budget and you need a discount, reach out to me and I'll give you the discount code. And that is it. Thank you for we'll invite our first speaker to the stage, Daniel, please.
Thank you. It's good that you mentioned Talent Arena because we at Dynatrace will be there. We will be having a hands-on workshop on observability. And we are also organizing a meetup inside the Talent Arena. So anyone that is going there is invited as well to those events. Let me connect to the meeting room. Will you speak there, Dan?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Danny Coll. Some of you might already know me because I've been around quite a few meetups on the React community. And I'm actually a developer advocate here at Dynatrace. And I came around this topic for the talk because I've always been in love about cybersecurity. And in Dynatrace, we have this add-on role that is the security advocate, which is on the development teams, someone that is giving the voice on security and is promoting security awareness. And it's also acting as the bridge between the security team and the development teams. So in different teams of development, there are different security advocates that connect to the security team. So basically, a security advocate is something like this. Oops. I need to share the volume as well, sorry. No.
Pero es que nadie va a pensar en los niños. ¿Qué ejemplo les estamos dando?
Yeah, basically I'm this guy, but in terms of security instead of the children. And you are people that works in React most of the time, right? Who is working in React? And you might wonder, why should I care about security? If I work in a big company, we already have a security engineering team, right? Why should I care myself? They will care for me. But that's a wrong assumption, because in any application, attackers can use any hole in your system, in your employees, to access sensitive data. And some attackers won't be as cute as this mouse that we have right here. They will be more like this other mouse. So if you have your croquetas e-commerce or whatever, just bear in mind that everyone needs to be security aware. And yeah, a hot topic today is the React to Shell vulnerability that happened last month. I guess some of people in here have already heard about it. Who heard about this vulnerability? Yeah, okay, many people. So it actually comes in handy doing a security talk, because this happened right last month, that the most critical vulnerability in React history took place with a 10 of a score of the common vulnerability score system. And why it had a 10 score out of 10? Basically, because you can exploit this vulnerability remotely. You don't need to be on the local LAN or being inside the computer of the person. It's very easy to exploit. You don't need a sophisticated machinery to do so. You don't need any kind of authentication either. Anyone anonymously from the internet can do it. It requires no user interaction, so no need for the user to click a button or doing a mistake. So it's on an HTTP request that anyone can craft. And it allows access to sensitive data, because you have access to the shell of the server that is exploited. And with that, also you can manipulate the data on the server, and you can potentially make the system completely unusable. So this vulnerability affects React server components, and mostly the framework Next.js. Who's using Next.js? Many people, wow. So I hope you already updated the version. If you have one of those versions, 19.0, 19.1, or 19.2, I hope at this time you already updated them. But yeah, also React Router, Waku are affected about this vulnerability. And this vulnerability happens in React Server DOM Webpack. And to understand how this vulnerability happens, we need to understand how React Server component happens. And there is this thing that is called the React Flag protocol that is used to communicate between the client and the server, and how the data is transmitted within them. And you have a process of serialization and deserialization to send data between each other. So in version 19, there was this piece of code that was introduced. Hopefully the guys on the back can read it. So basically, this metadata was coming from the HTTP payload, and you were putting inside an attribute of a random object you have in your code. So basically here you are giving the permission to the user to add any free text in the attribute of your object. This means that you could potentially try to access the proto attribute of the object, and by accessing the proto attribute of the object .constructor, you are basically doing the same as creating a function. So you can create any function you like remotely just by doing an HTTP request and sending in the payload something that would look like this. And in this case, you can see that I'm doing a console log. So this is equivalent to doing function and putting the console log inside. So we will create a function that executes a console log and will give the output 1, which is the parameter of the console log. So this is in short the vulnerability. And this is basically the security check that React Server Components was doing at some point in the serialization process. So no check at all. And how do we exploit it? So React has these internal chunks, objects that look similar than these ones. And it has these properties, then status, response, get. And if you craft an object similar like this one, you can execute any JavaScript. As you can see, here you can find some of the things I mentioned. You have the proto object, you have the then, because also there's a promise that needs to be resolved. You have the constructor thingy. And once you craft a payload like this into any random Next.js server that is vulnerable, whatever you have in the prefix attribute will get executed in the server. So any JavaScript can be executed remotely, and by executing any JavaScript, you can execute any shell script as well. In this case, by doing just process.mainModule.requiredChildProcess.execSync, we are executing already shell commands. In this case, DLS, which is listing the files on the folder. But we could potentially do anything. So let's take a quick look on how we can exploit it. For that, I just created a boilerplate application with the create Next.js app CLI. This is just the basic application. I did not modify anything except I put the vulnerable dependencies in here. So I could exploit it because right now it's not there anymore. So you need to explicitly set those dependencies. This is the only change I did. And by doing that, if I go to the verb suite here, I will say the target is, well, here's my server that I'm running it right now. Maybe I can stop it and run it again. I'm running it on the port 3453. And if I set this target to localhost, I'm not gonna deploy this into a server because maybe there's like a random attacker that tries to exploit it. I don't know, maybe if you had servers published, you might have found in the logs that someone tried to check if this was vulnerable or not, even if you don't have Next.js. So anyone is trying to check if you are vulnerable. And here I have a raw HTTP request that is a post, blah, blah, blah. And here's where you can see what I was telling you. Here's the object that allows us to have remote code execution. We have this payload that here we say that we want to access the proto, and we resolve the promise, the constructor, and then in this prefix attribute, we have the freedom to do anything what we like. In this case, I'm executing the whoami shell command, and if I send it to the server, if we take a look, who am I? Danny Coll. So remotely, I've been able to access, well, in this case, it's my own server, but I've been able to access this server-side shell. So I could potentially do as well something like ls, and I would see the list of the source code of the application, all the folder in here, the README, blah, blah, the same thing I have here. And also, I could have maybe, people what is trying to do to exploit it is installing some crypto miner. So I could potentially do create files and put whatever in there. So in the crypto, ReactJS, crypto miner. And if I hit send and I check our file system, there it is, ReactJS crypto miner. So basically, is that easy to exploit? I will also like remove my arrows F like this. So if I execute this,
The dot is prompt.
yeah, it's gone. My source code is done. My server also stopped. So let's move on to the next slide. So yeah, basically you can exploit it as easily as this. And it was just like the plain Next.js that you can create from the CLI. So coming back to the security part. What does React offer out of the box? It offers one thing: cross-site scripting protection. So, for example, this code, you have an unsafe HTML that is running a very malicious script. And by default, this script is treated as text. So you will need to explicitly set an attribute that is called dangerously set inner HTML, which its name already tells you that it's a bad idea to do that. But if you really need to do it, if you really need to set inner HTML dynamically that might come from the user or might come from your backend that in the end was created by the user, you need to do sanitization. You can use libraries like Don't Purify to sanitize this HTML, and it will remove all the JavaScript code that is in the HTML. In this case, this is the input, and this is the output. So it gets rid of the script, and it gets rid of the href that it has some JavaScript as well. So this is what React offers out of the box in the front end. And you might say, okay, the cross-site scripting is something that only happens to startups, that they don't know much what to do, or they are using technologies that are very new. But there are actually real use case scenarios of this happening. In this case, in 2014, eBay had this issue. So basically, you could potentially add scripting in the description of your own products. So there was a user that realized that, and they was putting on sale very cheap iPhones. So people was clicking on it, and the script was running for them. And what the script was doing, it was forwarding you into a fake eBay login account to then steal your credentials. This is an exploit that happened on 2004 and was remediated. But yeah, cross-site scripting is real, and you need to take into account. Probably they were not using React at that point. They were using something that starts with J and ends with query, but so what are the most critical security risks in 2025 that we are facing right now? I don't have much time, but I will explain two of them. The first one, and the most critical according to OWASP Foundation, it's the broken access control. And it means when you are trying to, you can access something that you are not authorized to. And this can be an horizontal privilege escalation, when someone from your same level of privileges can access your data, because you have the same level of privileges, but this is your private data. You should not be able to access it. For example, I mean, who hasn't tried to, whenever he sees an ID on the URL, try to see if I change the ID, what happens? I can see something else. So in order to remediate that, you should have always server-side checks that check that you have actually access to that private data. And also, if you use UUI IDs, you can also prevent the manual hijacking and trying random numbers to see if it works. Also, there's the vertical privilege escalation, and it actually probably happened to you that you try to do some service, you try to use some feature, and you find out that you have like a forbidden error or an unauthorized error, and you don't know which is the permission you actually need. So you say, okay, I'm gonna create a token for me, and I don't know which one I need to use. I will tick them all the permissions and let's go. Who has done that in the past? No one, don't be shy, okay. I did it myself, so I'm not proud of it. So please only use the minimum permission necessary. It's just 30 seconds to read the documentation and see which is the actual permission you need. So don't add more permissions than needed, because then if the token is leaked, then the problems arise and the attacker has access of more things that it should have. So another signs of weak API security can be when you have no rate limits, you are vulnerable to denial of service attacks. You can have some user that is accessing a lot your API and making it unusable. You also are exposing more data than is needed to the client. Why, if you don't need the address, in this case, in the front end, why are you exposing it to the front end? So just expose what you need, because maybe whenever it gets leaked, you end up exposing more things that what you needed to expose. Also, you can even find out stack traces in the client. So just bear in mind to catch the errors beforehand. And with that, let's see a real case scenario of a broken access control that happened to actually a big company, Facebook, in 2026. Someone remembers this one? No? So basically, Facebook has this system of resetting the password. And once you hit on reset the password, you put your email, you receive a 6-digit code to your phone, and you need to put that code into the form. And if it matches, you are able to reset the password. And this resetting had an anti-brute force mechanism in place in order to some random user not trying to try all the 6-digit codes that are possible. So it was limited to 3-4 attempts in order to not be able to brute force it. However, this guy, the CEO of AppSecure, Anand Prakash, found out that if he went to beta.facebook.com, this anti-brute force mechanism was not in place. So beta.facebook.com had the same data of the users as the real page, but it did not have this security mechanism. So he basically could steal any user account and reset their password. Luckily, it was an ethical hacker. So he notified Facebook, and it was rewarded with $15K prize for finding that out. So yeah, bear in mind that this can happen to anyone, and we need to be always atentos. Okay, so the second vulnerability I wanted to talk about is the supply chain failures. And basically, this is related to the dependencies you have in your application. So probably you don't have a vulnerability, but some of your dependencies has it. So you get affected to you. This is what happened to the React server components on Next.js. And it probably happens to any people that is using libraries nowadays. So all modern infrastructure has a random project that some guy in the mountains is maintaining. And if that gets exposed, we are all fucked and the internet goes down. So this actually happened also in 2024, not so long ago. And it happened on the XZ utils open source data compression tools. Anyone have heard of that or those? Yeah. So basically, XZ is a library that is used by Linux SSH command to compress data. And there was a guy that introduced a backdoor on it. So basically, if you are able to have a backdoor on SSH on Linux, you are basically can access all the Linux systems in the world. So there was, this is how it happened. There was this XZUtils library that was barely maintained by its main contributor. And there was a new user that created his account in 2021, and he started doing commits in that repository to gain the trust of the maintainer. So he was playing the long game. And after 2 years of doing contributions, he gained the trust of the maintainer, and he became the maintainer itself because the original one did not have time to maintain it. And once he became the maintainer, he added an encrypted backdoor code that was not so easy to spot. And with that backdoor code, he was able to gain remote code execution to all the Linux systems. Luckily, there was a guy that as soon as it was released, he realized that, well, he was monitoring his SSH commands, and he realized that there was a spike on the SSH commands, that it went from 300 milliseconds to 800 milliseconds. So it was half a second slower. And he found out that it was only after this update. And very soon they realized about this backdoor, and luckily it did not affect major companies, but it could have been really worse. If really this backdoor will not have this performance issue, maybe no one will have noticed it. So yeah, supply chain attacks are very dangerous, and they are in the top 3 of vulnerabilities that happens every year. And to remediate that, I do recommend using tools like Dependabot or Renovate that update automatically the dependencies regularly. So you avoid the known vulnerabilities that attackers can exploit. But you also have some setting like the minimum release dates to not update the dependencies the same second that they pop up. Just the usual thing is to wait like 24 hours, 48 hours to see like if someone is complaining about this or not. So you avoid the thing like it happened in the Linux system. So overall, avoid untrusted dependencies and also avoid dependencies for trivial stuff. I know that centering a div is hard, but we don't need to use an external library to do it. So now that we've seen the vulnerabilities, let's see which security mechanisms can we have in place. And I'm from Dynatrace, so I need to sell my book, and monitoring is one of the things that you can actually do, and observability. And this allows you to have real-time threat detection. So for example, in the case of the Linux backdoor, you can detect high traffic spikes comparing to historical data. You can see when there are repeated fail login attempts. You can see if there has been too many trials of accessing unauthorized data. Even after the attack has happened, you can do forensics and see which are the hosts that are really affected, which are the services, the applications, and you can trace all the vulnerability until you find out the root cause. And also you can identify this vulnerability, and it can offer you suggestions about what you can do to remediate it. Another protection mechanism is the cross-origin resource sharing, the CORS. So probably if you've been developing frontend, you had this error. Who had this error? Sometimes. Okay, no access control origin header is present on the requested resource. And who tried to solve it by adding this line into the backend? So don't do that, because you are allowing any origin to access your backend. And if you combine it with the allow credentials true that allows you to reuse the cookies that you have in another tab, it can get really worse, and I will show it now. So in order to solve it, host the client and the server on the same origin, like /API or something. And even if you need to access an external server, you don't need to change the course of that external server to be able to trigger it from here. Use a proxy as a middleware. And with that, I will finally show a demo of how we can exploit this course vulnerability once it is off. So basically, we have our user that is logged in a course vulnerable website, which in this case will be a crypto broker. And basically, the attacker tries to get the sensitive information from this user by sending him a phishing email. And once the person clicks on the phishing email, the other web will do an HTTP request to the original vulnerable website and get the sensitive data, thanks that the user is already authenticated into the vulnerable web. So after getting this data, he will collect it in their own server, having all the credentials in there. So how does this actually look? We can, here's the application. So let's see, for example, I'm the attacker. So I'm gonna inspect here. I'm the attacker. And I see here I have my wallet. I see my user details. And I can see in the API, maybe I will zoom out a bit more, not so much, that if I check the headers, I have this API call has access allow control origin asterisk and access allow credentials true. So here is like, I could potentially exploit this to see sensitive information from other users. So if I go to application, also I check that my cookies, my session token is in the cookies. So let's see if I can exploit it. So now imagine we are the vulnerable person that is using randomly this application. So he logs in, myself, I log in, blah, blah, blah. Oh, nice, I have some Bitcoin, some Ethereum. Everything is nice, everything is good. And I go to my Gmail to see if I have something new, and what I see? Congratulations, you won a free ticket for React Barcelona conference. Let's see. Okay. Hi, Danny. We're thrilled to let you know that you won a ticket to ReactJS Barcelona conference, November 2026, location Spotify Camp Nou. Seems legit. And it also comes from the Dan Nephew, the real Dan Nephew. So, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to click on it. It seems like legit, no? Let's see, let's click on it. Oh, congratulations. We won a ticket. Nice. And here is when we are already fucked. Because the broker app is so vulnerable that it's able to reuse the cookies that you created on the other tab and do an HTTP request because course is not enabled. So if you can see here the network of this page, what it's doing is accessing the user details from the other app and getting the same information that the real user got. And what it's doing is sending it to their own server to collect it. So if we can take a look at the collection server, I have it running on local. Or done. Yeah, here, stolen data. Username Danny. So this is the attacker has your sensitive data thanks to the app being vulnerable. And just by clicking a link. So just bear in mind how important having a proper course policy is. And actually it only happens if you have the session token and you are logged in, because if you are not logged in, since you don't have you will get an error of unauthorized because you don't have the cookies anymore. So it only happens with you logging. Thanks. Without knowing your cookies, I can do that because the app is so vulnerable, but only once you log in. And this is pretty much it. So as a conclusion, I would say that everyone needs to be aware of security, even if you are not part of the security team, even if you are the front-end guy, the mobile guy, the back-end guy, the test, anyone needs to be security aware, and don't wait for the vulnerability to happen to act. Also, I have some free enablement resources if you are interested on knowing more about security. There's like the Pursuit Web Security Academy, which has many labs on testing different vulnerabilities. Also, the ethical hacker course that allows you to learn about security and doing an exam in the end to test your knowledge. There's the Try Hack Me website that people set sandboxes for different vulnerabilities that happened recently. For example, there's one for React Shell that you don't need to set the server yourself. You can check it out there. And also there's the OWASP Foundation that has many projects that are about security. And there's one of them is the Secure Training Dojo that also lets you play around on security. So this is it. Thank you so much for listening.
Questions?
And if you want to connect, here are my QR codes of LinkedIn and GitHub.
Yes, in the back.
Hello, thank you for the talk. The question, do you know, does React team change something in their processes to prevent such huge error in the future?
I'm not aware. I don't know. I don't know if anyone in the public knows about this. No, hopefully they use Dynatrace.
Yes.
Anyone else?
No?
Cool. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you so much.
Time for our second speaker, Dan Tamas. As you can see, we're all Dan tonight. Like Danny, Dan, and Dan. So,
your name is Dan.js.
Dan.js. Thank you for joining.
First, see if this works. Okay. So a little about me. I'm a full stack JavaScript developer. I'm using hybrid technologies to develop for mobile since PhoneGap. Anyone? Okay, you're old. Just like me. I worked in many companies. I was freelancer. I had my own startup. I did consulting for some companies here in Barcelona, and I am working for an American company. I'm not going to say the name. I think you have it on the first slide. And I will try to somehow touch a little like the hot topic, like about AI, like everybody's talking about AI. So I know a lot about React Native. I know nothing about AI. So this is like looked interesting to me. So that's me right now. When people come and say, "Hey, we need AI in our app," so I will try to explain like what you can do. I try to prepare this slide like I said. Okay, I'm going to do like presentation and a demo and whatever, and then I said like I'm going to decide I don't know anything about AI and let's do it even course. So I start with a demo. Who are you? Who are you? Yeah, okay, second try. So basically, this is a very small AI assistant I built for this presentation, which is capable of doing some stuff. I try to explain just what happened because actually what happened was a lot. So first of all, we had like voice, which somehow the device was able to understand the second time what I said. And then it tried to reply to my question. But before replying to my question, it had to understand what it actually has to do. Because being an AI assistant, it can do like more than just reply to a question, right? So in this case, we use a model, like a voice model. It's called Whisper. I suppose you heard about this model. It's kind of dumb. It's a small model, has to be able to run on device. My English kind of sucks, doesn't have the accents. This model doesn't have all the like multi-languages or whatever. So you would have to speak very good English, which I don't speak, to make it like more performant, let's say. We would build a router to be able to decide what to do. And then we have this reg. Do we know what reg is? I draw it again. Yes, so basically you would have like a database of information when the model would gather data from, and then we create a reply based on this, right? So yeah, exactly what I said. I also wrote a little code because that's React Native, not much. But basically you would load the speech to text, you would load the model. This needs to be like loaded in the memory. Then the audio part, you would stream it to that model. It would be decoded, understood, and then it will send you back what it understood. So the first time was just you, the second time was who are you, right? And then how did it know what I actually wanted? I just created this part, which is like a router, like a simple router. If you want, it can be like any route in a Express server or whatever, when you can do various stuff, right? Like post a tweet, summarize, reg, or default it's to be able to do something if it's not able to detect what is your intention. And the modules I'm using and you are able to use in React Native are, one of them is compatible with like Vercel, AI SDK. I don't know if you heard about, it's a JavaScript SDK that tries to unify like a lot of modules, a lot of providers. So with one language or one like way of doing things, you can talk to Gemini, to Claude, to whoever you want, right? Come on. I swear I switched the, oh. So that's the architecture. Like you have voice input, the module, the router, which goes to any of these parts. This is like, they are kind of hard coded. You force the model to do only this because otherwise the model can be like, I don't know what you meant. Or usually AI is built in such a way that it tries really hard to reply or to do what you say. So I don't know if you remember, like 1 year ago or 6 months ago, you would have to say, if you don't know, say you don't know, because otherwise hallucinate with your bonkers, like invent stuff. And I talk a little about this, like retrieval augmented generation, because I suppose, like from what I saw, from what I see, like a lot of the AIs that companies want are related to their own knowledge base. So imagine you have Notion or whatever other, like, what's the other one? Obsidian. So you have like a bunch of documents in the company and you want to get information or questions or something. So in the old times, you would go to search and try to, now they have an AI. Basically, they do this, they have this database of information, which is, it's a vector database. So you would get all the information, you break it in small chunks, you would vectorize it. The same you do with your question, like, who are you? And then this vector search tries to find what information is similar. It will reply, and then a model will mix all this and give you a nice reply, right? Like we had here. Because in my case, in our case, like this is the knowledge base that I have, right? We have something about React Native AI, about MLC providers, about Vercel AI, but in the end, somewhere we have about this AI assistant, right? So this actually tells us what the AI is capable of doing. So when I asked, who are you? It searched like for a few articles from this knowledge base, decided like the last one, it's relative, it's related to my question. So it just like replied. And yeah, one question like I had was like, why do we need to use the model on top of this? But I just said it, like basically the model, what it's doing, it gives you like a nicer and more like concise answer. Otherwise, you will have just a search, a normal search in a database. Some codes. I will have these slides. It's not important. What is important here is this model, all mini LM. So this is the model that does like all the embeddings. I have this information as text. So when the application starts, this model runs and creates like all the chunks, all the embeddings. And it also searches for you in this small database. This is in memory. If you have a lot of documents, this becomes way more complicated. Ideally, you will try to break all the information in tags, in, I don't know, categories, in related topics and so on. So if you do search, then you will have to break this part. Otherwise, like the memory of device, it's going to suffer a lot. But for us, it was like, I don't know, 15 documents, not so much, so we can do it in memory. So yeah, this is what we actually do. We just search in this database, and then the model, which in this case is Apple. So it's the Apple's AI that you have it on the new phones. It will create like the summary of it, right? What else can we do? I'm talking about, yeah, maybe I should have started with this. I'm talking about these models that run on the device. So this, nothing went like in the internet. So this is something that you can execute on your phones. And this is why we use this Whisper module, right? That it's very limited because we don't have so much memory, and everything else like has to load in the memory. In this case, too long to read. What else can we do? I don't know. Let's summarize. Like, I'm pretty lazy, and I don't see nobody wants to read anymore. So I found this nice article. I'm gonna copy it, and I'm gonna summarize this text. So based on the router, that we also see, like now, what it does, it's summarizing. This is something that most of the models can do. In this case, I'm using the Apple one, but you can use different ones that are like especially created for summarizing. You can use this like on Android phones because you won't have the Apple Intelligence model on it. So you need to load a different model. It's kind of simple. I think all of us use it, or you can see it already like in Gmail. You already have like Gemini doing summarizing and so on. It's also implemented directly in Chrome. So if you go in Chrome in the console, you type window.ai, you'll have there some stuff that you can also use. Again, simple route. If it's summarized, we just tell it to summarize and they provide the text and that's it. Nothing more. You don't need any other part of the application. But all this is kind of limited, right? I mean, what we can do some local search, we can do some summarizing. We'll be able to use some other tools maybe, but we can't do, I don't know. I'll talk a little later about using tools. Some new modules are able to use tools, or if you want to draw something, you won't be able to do it on device, or you will need like a flagship device to be able to do this. So in this case, you will need to understand like what exactly you can do on device and how to take advantage of it, and also like try to understand like your environment, right? If you're a company, let's say, and you want to have like secrets or whatever, definitely you want to do something like locally, right? So you will use maybe a Llama model or something that you can deploy on device so you don't have to go on the internet. But if you have to do something that is more complicated, then you can use any of the ones that are like online. But again, you have to say like, am I sharing something with Gemini that says you're not in your data at all, and so on, but lands on their server. And about Apple Intelligence model, the good part is that you don't really need to load it because it's already on device, so it's already optimized. Let's say if you need to use like a Llama model, for example, you need to load it, so you'll have problems with memory. Like the memory part and the speed of execution, it's the constraints that stops actually us from using like more AI directly on device. So yeah, basically more or less what I said. There are the limitations, like if you need to do a summarizing like of a large text, imagine like I have a huge document, I just copy pasted and I pass it to our model. Like if you're like over 100K tokens, it won't do it for you, it will simply die. If you want to do, I don't know, for those of you who use code or Cursor or whatever, like if you want to do something that uses tooling or uses, how are the names, like
MCP.
Sorry?
MCP.
No, yeah, maybe MCP or I forgot the name, like it's new now, like you can put like an MD file with skills. If you want to do skills, depending on the model you have, you will get or not like better or worse price. Also, like models, not all are capable of outputting like structured data, because for the routing part, you really need structured data. You need this model to return a JSON file or to understand the JSON file. The Queen model, for example, it's not capable, or it is capable, but from time to time it will try to format your JSON, or it will forget a comma or whatever. So you will need to find a way to fix this. So you will need to understand each model, what you can do and what you can use it for. And also I try to detect if a device, because this is like an iPhone 17, but if I would have an iPhone 12, I wouldn't be able to do this. So also you need to understand like on what device you run. I mostly said already what's here. What libraries we can do? So currently there are two libraries. Like one is React Native AI built by Fullstack. The other one is React Native Executor, which is built by Software Mention. So each of them, they're trying to tackle like different ways. So the React Native AI one, it's compatible with Vercel AI. It uses the Apple provider, can use MRC providers. While the Executor one tries to be more broad because it's using like the PyTorch format, which is like extremely like extended. It gives you full toolkit, so you can use everything like embeddings, RAG, audio, video. Assuming your device can do, you can generate like videos on your device with this module. You just need to load any like model, and it will run. And of course, you can use both. How many of you are familiar with tooling, with tool calling for models? Okay, so what's happening is like the large models like Gemini or Claude from Anthropic. So they have this concept of tooling where you can create like a tool, like any function in JavaScript or whatever you want, like an executable file. And then you say, I'm going to prompt you to do something, and you will decide which tool to use based on your own understanding of things. Sometimes you can say, use this tool. But these tools, they have like a few problems. One, they need to receive their functions. If you pass to a function that like accepts a JSON file, something else, it will fail. So the model needs to be able to output like a special like format, in this case, a JSON file or a JSON-like format to this function. Sometimes you don't understand, the model doesn't understand what you want, probably because you won't prompt it right, or probably because you have tools that are very similar. There was one tweet like today, somebody said, my assistant just deleted 2 terabytes of photos that I had on my backup machine. I'm not sure how true it is, but if it's true, it's bad. So in case you need this, there are like 2 ways of doing it. One is put a safeguard. So tell the model to ask for to call a tool, but you in your code try to understand if they use that tool. If not, try to fix it and run it again. Try to fix it and run it again. Or you can do the router approach. So the router approach gives the model X like possibilities. Do a summary, do a search, or do nothing. But you have to put the 3 of them and to force it to only use the 3 of them. And otherwise, like it will be pretty complicated. And last, like if you have no other option, but you still need to do something because things are not very like clear or impossible to do locally on the device, then you would have to go to some remote AI for more complex stuff. I'll try to do like one example with this. So let's say, so probably it will try, it should, sorry. this should trigger like a usage of a tool. Let's see if it does it. Actually, yes. So you can act on various like applications in your device. I don't advise you to do so automatically. So in this case, you just open Twitter and it's your last call to do this. Let's try to see how we decided to do. So I decided to use the post tweet route, and the response like opening X post. So it will open like it's a normal intent in React Native. It's just a function like executed with the text like I pass. And you're also, I mean, you're the audience. So yeah, as you see, it's like we are pretty limited right now because like of what things we can do on device. Nevertheless, people are working on this to make it better. If you are forced to do this or if you need to do this, you can simply try to adapt like what you need. I advise try to use like the local thing as much as possible because it's not going to cost you anything for summarizing or for search or even like to do various stuff like post a tweet, take a photo, I don't know. You can do it like locally. You can use any of these two libraries. There are two more libraries that are like on GitHub or people are working on it. One is this runtime, which is ONNX. This is a format for models to be universal. So if you'd be to use just React Native AI or the other one, the executor one, you can't load a model from which is created for PyTorch into React Native AI because they are different formats. The React Native, this one is ONNX. This is like a model that is compatible with everything. You can load it in a browser with Transformers.js or whatever. They are not so performant. Some of them, they either like take too much space, like memory, or they are quantized. I don't know the word. Basically, they are like dumbed down a little just to take less memory. And then Infinite Rails, they were working like since some time on this ML-Kit. ML-Kit was something that Android introduced, actually Google. When you have some, they wasn't quite LLMs, but they still have some machine learning in it. So you could do like vision light detect objects, or you could be able to scan like barcodes, QR codes. This at the industrial level. Imagine like you're in Amazon and you have like a bunch of boxes. You would have this model and you do like this with the camera and you scan everything. You don't need to do each barcode and so on. Or text recognition, but it's kind of like not used anymore or not developed anymore because Google introduced now, it's called Gen AI, I think. When it's the user model, it's called Gemma, which can run on devices actually, which is more capable. It's more or less capable like Apple's one, and they didn't add it to their module. So depending on what you need to do, you can take a look. Yeah. Questions, if any? Yes.
In the local models, is possible to connect with SQLite, for example, to generate memory
Yeah.
in the model?
This you would do it like more or less. It would be very similar to the reg one, right? Imagine this file. This instead of being a file would be like an SQL database. So you'd have like a function in React Native connected to this SQL database, and then you can. But you need a vector database. If you want to search for it like more like in a free text, not necessarily in SQL, you have to say. if ID equal 2, give me this result. So, but it's possible because it will be just another tool. It will be like communicate with SQL. Yes.
Is it easy to constrain like which tools you have access to?
Yeah.
Like in a JSON
Yeah.
file or something?
Let me see if I can show you. This one. So this is what I was talking about the router. So basically, when you start with some text, the AI will have these 4 options: post-tweet, summarize, reg, and then default. You give these options. I'll show you in the presentation because I think it's easier. So you create a schema with those or whatever else. And then in this schema, you have the route, which has 4 options: post-tweet, summarize, reg, default. Because the model is capable of understanding and working with structured data, it will simply stick to that structured data. If you use here another model, like I tried with a version of Qwen, I think that was a very small one, Qwen 0.6, whatever. And that one from time to time goes bonkers and doesn't respect this. So it won't respect the schema. But if you have a model that it's built specifically to use structured data, it will stick to this schema. So it won't be able to do anything else. That's
And about LangChain and LangGraph, have you ever tried to use them? Because I know they have like a version for TypeScript. Have you ever used it to do it all?
no.
I've used it in Python, and I guess it would be like way better to work with it, but still have to try it.
No, I didn't. Thank you very much for.
Thanks again for everyone for coming. We're gonna have pizza and drinks in the lobby. Thanks for Dynatrace for hosting. They're hiring. Check out their website.
Yeah, last 2 things. It's not pizzas, it's empanadas.
Empanadas.
And the important thing is if you need to leave, you need to contact someone from Dynatrace, me or Danny, or we have some colleagues here because we need the access card for the elevator. Okay? And thank you, everyone.
Sí. Me gusta las empatadas.